They want $3,500.
Good evening, I'm calling this finance meeting to order.
We started our.
I am Councilmember Nick Joseph Saul, and present tonight, are council members Greg Armand and Chloe Taylor. To start the agenda, I would actually like to invite the auditor to come up and present the topics that he sent to the finance committee earlier,
I can do that.
whenever you're ready.
Yeah. Good evening, Finance Committee, residents in attendance, and anyone bored enough, oh, we're at 0. But if you come on later, anyone bored enough watching at home. I'm gonna try and push through, the few things I have as quickly as possible, because I know you guys have had a long night. The first is an easy one. It's a USDA accounting requirement. What does that mean? I'm gonna prepare an email for you guys so you're prepared for the full council meeting. And I'll show the attachment that the USDA sent my way. So they actually closed out a very large grant for the city that was unspent on the sewer plant. This was not intended or planned. However, I promise this is good news, council. I promise this is good news. When they closed it out, the city, I'm not sure anyone of us here knew that was the policy. Maybe Fred with his longer experience here, or excuse me, the city manager. They give that money to the entity in cash, not literally dollars and bills, but they wire it to the entity. They're then required to be set aside for set purposes. They're split in half, not exact half, but very close. And the first half is for debt payment. So in other words, the next few, I should say couple. The next couple debt payments to the USDA for the sewer plant will be covered by the grant. So in other words, those are just waived payments for the city, essentially, since it's federal funds in, federal funds out. And then the other portion is what's called short-lived assets. And that will be a capital improvement fund set aside only for the sewer plant and only for the sewer plant, for projects that require either maintenance or upgrade. And I believe the amount was 15 years life cycle or longer. We're used to dealing in 5 years here at the city, but this federal requirement is 15 years. So essentially, say something breaks major, like at one of the tanks of the new sewer plant, the federal government has essentially said the tab's on them for the first few major fixes or upgrades. It's a very large sum. It's $631,129.67. And we're required to separate those funds. So what I'm asking of the finance, we actually already have them. The USDA was wanting this off their task list very quickly, which is understandable. And the only thing we need to do is set those funds aside in those required accounts, which will essentially be called, they're required by the agreement we signed with the federal government to be called the Debt Service Reserve Fund and the Short-Lived Assets Fund. Although we probably will add sewer plant or something like that to the nomenclature. So I thought I'd start it off with good news. I bring $600 and some thousand. Well, the U.S. taxpayer does.
Now you're going to spend it.
And they actually do check those. They'll check those every year with our yearly audit. If that's important to anybody, but I do think it's an important accountability measure that we set these funds aside and use them for their intended purposes.
I have a question, Taylor. On your reports, since you won't be here in that year, can you flag it somehow? So that they have a clue?
As soon as the council approves those funds, they'll start showing up on my auditor's report, which I suppose under the current timeline will probably be July or August, so right towards my last month or two. But I'll point it out.
That would be great.
Yeah.
This be an appropriation, or would this fall under a different activity.
This would count as a fund, so council will be creating two funds and then authorizing two different transfers. Because those funds, we currently place them in what we call the project fund for the sewer plant, the fund that we use to build the sewer plant with. We had to place it somewhere before these funds existed, if that makes sense. So council will be making two funds and then authorizing two transfers.
Okay,
Yeah, so we would refer this also to Mr. Rowe from this committee to create legislation.
okay. Does everyone in the committee approve of that?
Absolutely.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, and I should add, and I hope council joins me and the city manager joins me at the council meeting when this comes up, and underlining 3 times the impact that will have on the ratepayers here in town. That'll be $600 some thousand dollars that the Nelsonville ratepayers, including Brookville, Murray City, and Nelsonville, will not have to pay on their water bills, which is a big deal. That's a lot of money for a little Nelsonville. Other stuff is easier. There's 2 small appropriations. The police chief emailed the committee last week, I think right before Mr. Holmes's first day, asking for $5,000 for a required upgrade. Radios, thank you. I was like tasers, radios, something, radios, pagers. So that would be to his operating funds. That's the 40010 fund, or excuse me, line item in the police funds. The second one is the fire department received a grant from workers' comp. So to ensure that that grant doesn't come in and then come out of his budget, which is called budget replacement, which is not allowed by grants, we'll need to appropriate 6,100 to the fire departments. 6,200, I'm sorry. Those are for airbags. The chief could probably be able to explain better. I don't know anything about fire equipment, so I probably can't answer too many questions on that. But workers' comp is paying that amount, and then the city has a match, but it's much smaller.
If I recall, the chief went to a training, or he went someplace, learned about these airbags, learned that he could apply for a grant for these airbags, and came back and applied for them. I think in one of his reports in recent council meetings, gave a report about applying for that grant for the airbags for our department. And so he must have acquired it. So that's good news. And the airbags are pertaining to, I believe, when it comes to vehicles.
Yeah, I believe so.
Oh, there's maybe private or
Okay.
And just, if anybody's trapped in a vehicle, I think it allows. Them.
Oh, so they can spread it out and they can get out. I've
Yeah.
seen those, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a nice little feature, so.
Do we formally?
Yeah, so again, that'd be the same thing we'd recommend, which I do. It would go to Mr. Rowe to create the legislation for that.
And a lot of times we can do all the appropriations on the same legislation unless it's,
Okay,
for some reason, it has to be separate, but in most instances, he would be able to do whereas, for this particular fund and appropriate for this fund,
We do have a little more time than usual because our next council meeting is far enough down the road. Mr. Rowe won't have to rush to get this all ready for the next council meeting.
that's great. So I am fine with recommending, that Mr. Rowe, develop some legislation, where council has the opportunity to make those appropriations. If everyone else agrees with that as well. Great,
Absolutely.
thank you.
I'm gonna add one more. I put the police and fire one separate just because their situation's different than this one. Well, actually, there might be 2. The second one may come up if Mr. Holmes discusses a proposal I think he's discussing later in this meeting, so I'll leave it with one. The miscellaneous expenses in the general fund is a smaller line item that just for your guys' edification, or maybe somebody who has an expense report open at home, who knows. Line item 100-625-41112. That's miscellaneous expenses, the general fund. We use it for, well, Corey knows going way back. It wasn't always used the way it should have been. I'd like to think it's used much more so, in line with its purpose now, which is smaller, uncertain purchases that don't require a full line item. The best example is there's bug treatment, pest treatment, let me rephrase, just to make sure, we're close to a river. Food is in here sometimes, the public's in here, just to make sure City Hall is nice and clean and pest free.
Yeah, I hear some critters outside now.
Yeah, I do hear some frogs. There's some line item, so it is also kind of like a contingent line item, meaning if something comes up that's unexpected. A good example might be like, this is not happening in case we don't want to start any controversy, but for example, the last two council meetings ago, the advisory commission suggested, well, we should find out how much like an election would cost. And that would be something like that. We're not paying for an election. I'm just saying it's things unexpected. There has been more unexpected in the last few months. So that line item was getting pretty tight at 80% spent. I was going to ask the council to consider 5,000 more funds just to make sure those small things are covered throughout the year. Happy to answer any questions.
Do we have any reason to discuss that before? Do you have any concerns?
I mean, if it's already spent 80% and we're not even 50% of the way through the year of our budget, we don't have to do it. We can always wait till later, but, just if something pops up, then we may be more under the gun to appropriate the monies, and then you might be forced to put it under an emergency, which you might not. We don't need to put this under emergency. We can do 2 readings, and so. I mean, I don't think it's. I think it's evident we've had things popping up this year. So I mean, I think that I'm okay with appropriating additional monies for contingency for things that might pop up. I mean, the city manager, the city auditor are going to be the ones responsible for spending the money on behalf of the city. So I mean, I don't have any reason to believe that they would be doing anything that wouldn't be needed for the city, so for the benefit of people. So.
Fair enough. I think that it's worth discussing with the general body. So if we're all in agreement, let's recommend that to Mr. Roden too.
Okay.
Potential legislation.
Sorry, just reading my terrible handwriting. That's the easy. What was that? I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I thought there was.
I said, that sounds like.
Oh, it is. It is.
Forgive me.
Oh, you're
Insurance renewal legislation is what I have next on my type version.
Yes. The health insurance renewal is due. It's May. They met 2 weeks ago. The board. I'm a member of the city's representative appointed by council to our health insurance board. For council members saw the health insurance is not a company, or the public, anybody who might not know. We have a pool, a consortium joined with a bunch of other public entities, and it's actually called the Public Entities Pool, or PEP for short. Excuse me, sorry, that's the liability insurance. But it is a public entity consortium. It's called the Ohio Small Groups Pool, and it provides the health insurance coverage for the city, as well as the jail, Belcree, several other smaller villages that I'm forgetting. Their meeting was while I was at training, so I unfortunately missed it, but it was a good meeting. I reviewed the minutes and the renewal, which is 5%. I was impressed. The national
Double digits for a change.
Yeah, the national average for 2025 was projected to be between 8 and 9, so I wrote 8.5. 5% would be a shared cost. The city's cost would increase 5%, and so would the employees' share of the health insurance. It seems like every year I bring this up, either the public or council asks, can the council shop around? And they can, but it's a very long process. It's 6+ months. So since our renewal is due in June, that's not possible in this moment, but council can at any time. Of course, in coordination with the labor unions, because they have a lot to gain or lose in that discussion, can shop around, and the city manager. So the city manager and I will just need authorization to sign the 5% renewal. Unless, of course, council feels differently.
Yeah, this is kind of a procedural thing every year. There's constant increases. I think all of us probably face that in our own personal lives too, with the cost of the premiums going up. So, yeah, it's more of a routine situation anymore, and just reviewing that and renewing it each year. So I'm pleased with 5%. That's actually pretty good. So,
Yes.
Yeah, I'm happy that it's lower than the national average by quite a bit.
I think it was too last year. It was a little bit higher than that, than 5%, but I think it was lower also last year. So the pool that we're part of does a nice job, I feel like, getting a good plan and effect, because I think we do have pretty decent insurance for our employees, which I'm proud of. So.
I see no problem with, bringing this to the full body. If everyone else,
I say move forward too.
Yep, I
Okay.
agree.
Now, once that is considered, if the city wants to shop around, would, finance committee do that? Would another entity within the city do that?
There's a couple ways to go about it, I would say. I would think the committee could ask the city manager and the auditor. For some reason, the health insurance has always been managed by the auditor's office. I've happily done it. Don't get me wrong. I actually enjoy the board meetings. It's not how anybody else does it. I will say that. Everybody else, it would be the executive and the legislative body. But basically, council would just need to set a framework, empower somebody to start getting quotes. And it does take a good long time because they have to take census and see our health costs.
And census is where they have to gather all the information from every single employee within the plan, their prescriptions, just everything, all their health data, in that process. So that's what the census is. It's pretty of an in-depth process.
There's also, sorry.
No.
I was just gonna say
I have no
the
complaints, and it doesn't sound like anybody.
other pathway, and has been discussed before, is because it's a small pool or a public entity pool. The city and the unions together, the employees in the city together, have full control over the plan design, where a major medical company like CVS would give you a menu, and you have to pick from it. The city and the council and the employees could say, anything, actually. If they wanted to increase premiums, but get much better coverage or lower deductible or really do anything. And those folks are really, really good. Kent, can't remember his last name. Kent is really good about answering emails. He's the one who helps manage this for the group.
So I don't recall, does that, for the employees, does that include immediate family? They can be included in some of the plans?
Yes.
That's what I thought. I thought so, but I wasn't sure.
Yes.
How does this fit in with the time frame that the city is going to find itself under with that November, December maybe not being as pleasant as we had hoped it would be.
It should, in this case,
Can
I
it be done
suppose,
before that? You said it's a long time, and we don't have a real long time.
oh,
We
the
don't
shopping
need to
part?
shop around. I was just wondering what the
You don't
process for
want
that
to-
would be.
You don't want this.
It is a scary
Fair
part.
enough.
It is so scary, but
Okay, and that was just my question, because it would just really, I don't see it being possible, really, well,
Be challenging for sure.
So if we redo this, are we locked in for a period of time?
for a year,
That's what I thought.
you'd be
yeah,
locked
but
in
that
until
gets
next
us
year.
by that gap.
That's what I'm saying though, but if we shop around, we gotta keep in mind that we are locked in for a year.
Okay,
So in other words, if council, at least for the city's always been on the summer schedule for insurance, health insurance. So anytime the council wanted to get quotes, you would be, almost always be looking at the next summer,
Right.
Okay,
for something like that, which
That's
is a
good
long
to
time.
know. That's good to pass on.
And sorry, I've already lied to the committee because I said I'd be brief and it's 8:26.
Brief is brief, Taylor.
The next thing is,
You had on there recommendations of an external audit for transition period in finance office.
yeah, the law director sent me a letter recommending an external audit. It's actually a very good recommendation for an external audit, of the cash basis of financials. It's actually something a few of you might remember when I first got elected. I'd be kind of in these seats, I actually poked around the idea about should we do this for the transition period? It's very common in cities. It wouldn't be a full audit, like examining every policy like we go through. It would be just the cash financial statements.
But it would give a good
It'd be the
reference of where you were before the transition started.
It really would. So he sent that letter a few weeks ago, and I agree with it. I wanted to put it in front of the committee. The only thing we would need, let me make sure I'm thinking this through. The only thing I believe we would need is just an understanding that the city manager and I would gather some quotes for the idea, and we would present it to you later here.
Okay, so you wouldn't need a resolution authorizing that ahead of time. You could go ahead and do that, and then we would handle legislation at that point based on whatever recommendations you would have.
I think that's right, because the estimated cost I heard from the state auditor's office was far below the bid threshold, so I don't actually think any authorization is needed for the quotes part. So I wanted to mention that, and then I will finish with my last handwritten note. I had discussed this with a few folks one-on-one, but wanted to finally start talking about it out in this chamber. The W-2s for 2022, as the council knows, and the public knows, they were lost in the mail in 2023 in January. And the IRS, we went through a process with them. And you never bite the hand that feeds you, so a process is a good word. Anyway, so I did receive confirmation. I have written notice and can provide a copy to anybody who needs one, that the full proposed penalty amount for having lost that mailing, because in the United States, lost mailing is not a valid excuse for not getting your filings there on time, for right, better or worse. A full abatement of the penalty of $25,520, which was proposed. It was never actually assessed, but they have let us know that we're good. Started with good news, ended with good news. So
There you go. All right, and another good news.
I have a quick question for
Yes.
you. The state audit of the year 2023 has been completed.
It is done. They are waiting, they're waiting on one letter from, somebody not here, full-time, and as soon as that letter is received, it's published.
Okay.
But it is done, and the 24 one is well underway. That's what I worked on most
Will
of the day.
they come to council and talk about it, or will we just get a copy of it and have to review it?
You guys should get certified copies of it. So they asked for everybody's contact information, city manager, council, I think treasurer and all that. So, and they publish at midnight. So whatever day they decide, you'll get it at midnight. I have reviewed it. The audit is pretty good. It's not our best, meaning our best was a clean audit. We had no write-ups. This one has one or two, which is still way better than years prior. The management letter, which is actually not a public document, it's just meant for management. Hopefully council takes some, and especially this committee, because under state law, it's technically a finance and audit committee. Hopefully you guys review it just closely. There's some good spots for improvement. And I unfortunately won't be here to help improve some of those things, but there's a lot of good suggestions. Okay.
There were a couple other things that I wanted to cover while you were with us.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I'll be here too. I won't leave.
Okay, great. We have been asked to review, our check report approval procedure, which, as far as I understand it, is that the checks may be written, they have check numbers, but they are not, the money is not dispersed, or the checks are not distributed until we, approve the reports. Is that more or less correct?
That is correct. However, there are changes coming,
Okay,
that the city manager and I are excited to present at the next council meeting. Yeah.
Wonderful.
okay.
I know the utility people will be very happy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I don't want to make it seem like I'm taking the oxygen from that conversation, but, we've already met about it, and, there's a lot of proposed changes that I think everybody will be happy with.
great, I'm looking forward to hearing those.
Cool.
Thanks. And then, so we received the county auditor's estimate of the resources to be collected from the street levy, which, as far as I understand, was $186,000, $186,055. Now, is it upon council as a whole to place it on the ballot before a certain date?
It is, yes.
Okay,
So basically,
what date?
it'd be this November, so
Okay.
that'd be the last election before it expires. A good practice for the future, just for, especially, since I believe you're running and we'll have an opportunity to impact this, best practice is to put it on in the primary, so we get 2 opportunities to get it passed in case voters, shoot it down.
Okay.
We didn't get there this time. We obviously had a lot going on, so, but yes, the
We
council.
had one on there, didn't we? We had one for the primary, didn't we?
We did have one thing on the primary. I vaguely heard about that issue.
Great.
So, yeah, so council approved the, estimates, or can approve the estimates. You can also reject them, probably should approve them, and then place on the ballot. It just needs done before the end of July.
And we'll have another one next year, is that correct? Is it next year?
I think next year are we back to the parks? Because it's usually back-to-back street. and
Street,
parks.
yeah, we did street last year, didn't we?
Right.
Last year, and then we got another street this year, and then parks next year. I think you're right.
So,
In case anybody, oh, sorry.
no, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, in case anybody doesn't know, our full property tax listing, if you pay property taxes, which is all of us, buyers and renters, because if you pay rent, it's going to the property taxes too. The city has 3 levies, 2 street levies, which equal up to 5 mills, and then 0.5 for recreation, which is actually one of the smallest in the county. And so if you pay your taxes, almost all of it goes elsewhere, almost all of it. You pay $1,000, the city might get 100 on a good day. And we have we actually have the smallest tax burden, property tax wise, of any incorporated area in Athens County. So yes, there's lots of, I'm gonna know soon enough, in 4 months, how many complaints there are about property taxes, but no, most of it doesn't go to your city or village. So, I wasn't quick at all, so. I wasn't quick at all. Thank you.
Do you have any questions for the auditor?
No, so we'll
Okay.
move the street levy, make a recommendation for Mr. Rowe to draw up that legislation also.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you're gonna have to report all of this to Mr. Rowe to have all this legislation for the next meeting.
That's fine.
Okay.
Thank you. Next, could the city manager come up and, I have a question for you about an ongoing, project. Oh, thank you. So on April 28th, council adopted ordinance 24-25, authorizing the city manager to apply for, accept, and enter into an overflow sewer grant agreement on behalf of the city for the design of the Phase 5 sewer project. And I just wanted to check in, considering that there is an ongoing transition in the city manager's office. I was wondering if you've been brought up to speed on that, or if you could give an update on how that's going.
Not been brought up to speed.
Okay.
And there is a construction meeting on Thursday, so he might be able to come up to speed on some of that. So all the construction folks will be in that meeting discussing current projects and future
Right.
projects. So
I did meet with the construction company, and they brought me up to speed on all of it, but I can't speak specifically to that one.
Great, that's fine.
I presented to council a request to join the Athens County Economic Development Council. This is what I spoke of last night about getting involved in economic development with the county and with our partners. I don't know, currently we are not a part of it. I don't know how long we have not been a part. Been a while. Let me read to you the mission. The mission is to be a catalyst for quality jobs and progress in Athens County and throughout the region by creating a seamless network of economic development resources through partnership with government, business, and nonprofit organizations. I really like their vision. Their vision is to be the most respected and prominent agent for positive economic change in Athens County. I really feel it's very important that the city of Nelsonville be a part of this organization. There's several different membership levels. The full institutional, the affiliate, the associate, and the individual. I am recommending that we join at the affiliate level, which would be at $21,500 annually. Class of membership makes us eligible to vote under special rules at 10 monthly meetings and hold open positions on the board of trustees. I believe the auditor has been in discussion, and it may be prorated, or it will be prorated.
The executive director has suggested she's willing to prorate the membership for 25.
But also, they've expressed they're very, very interested in upskilling. And I think it was best.
the city actually used to be part of it. You know, we were part of it. I represented the city going to the meetings, and a lot of activity was even happening then. I'm sure there's still a lot of activity still occurring. Basically, one of the things too that we should do is create an inventory of either buildings within the city that are vacant that could be utilized, or land that could be developed for buildings, because what happens is they'll get specific. So when I was serving, representing the city, this was about the time that Diagnostic Hybrids was leaving the incubator and going, you know, into a standalone building. We brought a company called CGI to Athens County. You know, at the time, you know, Quidel ended up buying DHI shortly after they went out onto their own. All that's at the State Street Tech building down there. There's some other businesses that come in the healthcare field too. So what happens is these folks will reach out to the Athens Economic Development Council. There's a lot of counties and regions that have their own economic development council. These type of businesses will come out and say, hey, we're looking to expand to your area. And this is kind of what we're looking for. We need 17,000 square feet, you know, and that's kind of the importance of the inventory. If we have space that we can, use, to provide to the Economic Development Council, so that way we can help bring, businesses in. Now, Athens tends to get a lot of it because a lot of the people coming in are trying to partner, say, with the university. So that just happens naturally, organically, right? But there are things, in my opinion, where we have an opportunity. We have an opportunity, a lot of people don't think about this economic development wise, but tourism is a large part, and I think we can partner with that. We have a new facility in Bookville that does textile work. I think that's potentially expansion opportunity there that would benefit our community. So I think there is opportunity here. We just have to look for it a little bit. So I like it. I think I'm a big proponent of economic development. So I think that but I see the opportunity, like you mentioned about the Taco Bell building. I see that opportunity, so I'm excited for it. I would definitely support this if that's something that council wants to move forward. I've had a good experience in the past, working with them. Typically, there's a county commissioner that sits on the board. The Ohio University is a partner. The Port Authority was a partner. I know Jack Portal was as an individual on there, but very influential in the region when it comes to hotels and event centers. So I'm not sure who's on there now, but we used to participate in it. I'd like to see it back to it. I think it's a great opportunity. And with the capital improvement plan, with the that we've been working towards, with the comprehensive plan, I think this just kind of fits right into it. So.
As a citizen, I can totally agree with that, because if they don't know what we've got to offer, and this is a wonderful opportunity for people to know, then how are they going to even come to see us?
And
So we should have a voice on this council.
And show how available we are and what the opportunities are.
And as a council person, you talked about prorated fees. Did you expand on that, please?
She didn't send a figure because she said she'd have to get it approved by the board we're hoping to join.
Oh,
But she did say she thought there would be willingness to, based off how much time has passed for the year, since it's an annual fee, prorate to
okay.
just what's left of the year.
Thank you.
So I asked the auditor prior to the meeting, if I have to say this right, the economic development line item in the budget, we have $87,000 in that fund. So that's where the funding could come from for joining this board.
I think it'd be a good use of the money.
Yeah,
I believe it's how the city of Athens uses theirs. Lodging tax, a large portion. I must have left my report up there, but yes, 87,000.
The other good thing about being part of the committee is you also, when you're sitting at a table and you're talking with all the other people that have a seat at the table, you also know what stuff is going on in the area. So, if Gloucester's doing something, if Coolville's doing something, Albany, Athens, Amesville. So if other things, of other businesses that are going in or other development that's taking place, I think it's good for the city too, then, we might be able to participate in that. So one reason why I think it's good too, and I've talked with other people about this, a lot of people get bored when I start talking about this stuff. So I apologize if anybody gets bored. What most people don't really understand, I had this conversation with a Green Township trustee as well. I agree. We're 20 years behind. We're 20 years behind, 5 areas because we didn't start the process of developing our area, fixing our infrastructure, et cetera, long before we started. So we're kind of behind the 8 ball, but we are about to become upon the biggest influx in jobs in the state of Ohio in history. So we have a chip plant that will be it's delayed right now, but it'll be the largest chip plant on the planet when it is built, when it is constructed. We also have another company that's investing, putting a facility in Pickaway County, and they just bought 600 and some acres right next to Rickenbacker. And it's gonna be about 8,500 jobs just at that facility. Now, that's good for a community like ours because we're a short commute to Rickenbacker. And people could live here, one, which would impact our residency, would impact our housing, our community in that positive manner. The other way it can impact us is the ripple effect of more jobs that are gonna be supporting those industries, those businesses that could be coming from here. So I don't know if anybody has driven to Columbus in the last year and noticed all the giant buildings that all went up in the cornfield. Okay, so I'm just saying, we have the ability to be impacted by this in a very positive way. It's gonna be difficult, it's gonna require change, it will mean change for the city, but not necessarily in a bad way. I think it could be very good and positive. But we have the ability to have a huge ripple effect. Now, those industries also will probably bring a lot of people that may not be living in Ohio, currently to Ohio. So if we don't benefit from them living here and commuting, or working there, you know, at those places, or having a business that could, you know, benefit those businesses, we could be their tourist destination for the weekends. I'm just saying, we've got bed and breakfast, we've got canoe liveries, we've got, tubing, ATVs. I'm just saying, we have a lot, we've got a train, we've got an opera house, we have a lot of assets that I think could benefit us. And, you know, so I just think that we have to be very open-minded to that. And unfortunately, we haven't been there as of late. So I'd like to get back to that, because I think that this is a very positive impact. I appreciate you bringing this, because I think it'd be a great thing for the city. So sorry to get on my soapbox.
That's huge.
Thank you. I think that this is, something that council as a whole, should discuss, as if everyone is in agreement about recommending the idea for consideration.
I say yes, moving on to full council,
And we, if council desires, we can also potentially reach out to the executive director to see if he wants to be present at the next meeting when the legislation comes, to even talk about, you know, the council.
yeah, because I think we need to jump on it. You know, take advantage of the prorated amount and get started.
I agree.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I just add, that was the item I said you might want to add to your appropriations list. So we'll have to add that to appropriate. Anyway, I just want to make sure we get that on the list.
Thanks. Ms. Joseph Saul, I see another, looks like maybe a grant application calendar and possibly a.
Yes, so I have three items left. I'm expecting the first two to be rather short. The first one that I wanted to move to was an update on the Serving, Educating, and Empowering, or SEE, Fathers Program grant application. I was looking over the requirements, and applicants must demonstrate experience actively serving fathers for at least 3 out of the past 4 years. Now, I have only been here for 2 out of the past 4 years, so I can't speak to the city's experience in this realm. But the looks on faces around the room say there might not be much. Would either of you say that the city has any experience in putting on programming to benefit fathers and families with fathers?
I don't think the city has had much programming for fathers, if that's what you're asking. I don't think there's been, I mean, I've experienced, I've been involved in a lot of activities in the community over the years that I've been here, the years that I've had, you know, my boys are from here. I've been involved in, you know, coaching, multiple sports, Boy Scouts. I will tell you from my experience that interacting with the youth in the community, there are a lot of you know, children that don't seem to have father figures in the community. We have a lot of folks in the community that are grandparents that are raising, you know, their grandchildren. But, so there are some father figures there, but, you know, but I've also coached with a lot of fathers, you know, so I know that there is a, you know, very active role on folks that, you know, that our fathers in the community are very active with their kids, I feel like. But I don't think we've had any specific programming around that. I'd be excited to learn more about it. So.
I mean, it sounds like we could likely demonstrate the need, but it could be a stretch for us to demonstrate experience within the city in terms of managing similar projects. So, you know, if the answer to my first question had been yes, we've done that before, the next concern that I ran into as I was looking over the requirements was that we must provide a program manager with at least 3 years relevant experience in this realm as well. And that seems unlikely.
Is there a deadline on this?
Yes,
What-
May 19th. And that's why I'm wondering if this is not an opportunity for us at this time.
Do you know, is this a grant that would come around again in about a year?
I'm not sure if the application process is revolving. I did see that applicants who are granted funding through this program could use it for programming like into the 2030s. So that's what excited me about this opportunity. And the fact that the deadline was coming up with a pretty quick turnaround time. I think the announcements are scheduled to go out in June or July for awards. But
If I could you send that information to me? I should know that.
Hey, you gave her papers, just, you know.
That's why you have an assistant.
so thank you
I
very much
don't-
for looking into
okay.
this.
We look into it.
Yeah.
I do know that there is a lot of involvement in sport, a lot of involvement.
May I ask, does this pertain to like single fathers
It could.
or is it fathers period?
It seemed very open-ended. The language that was used was serving fathers and or families with a father.
I will make you no promises, but I will look it over and see if there's an opportunity.
Greatly appreciated. Thank you.
It's a tight timeline.
Yeah,
But,
it is. Now to give a quick update on putting together a grant application calendar where we are tracking revolving application opportunities. I haven't made much progress on that, but I did set up an account for the Ohio Grants portal. So that is in the works, and I will, you know, I'll explore platforms for searching for and applying for grants. Give you guys another update at our next meeting. Is there anything that you would want me to look out for in particular?
Well, I think there's always recurring ones that we should definitely just, by default, we should be applying for them every year. You know, you have the Nature Works grant, which is, you know, it's divided out. Each county gets a set amount. Ours has gone down over the years. But it's around 21,000, I think it is now. And To be honest, since I've been on council, we've applied for that most every year, and I think of all the years that we've applied for it, I think for many years, we were the only place in Athens County applying for it, so we were obviously awarded it. But there's only been maybe 3-4 times that we're not awarded the money, that when we applied for it, because somebody else did apply. There's always the Rocky Community Improvement Fund and the Ohio Osteopathic, they've merged into one. There's always that grant that comes around, I think twice a year now. One in the spring, one in the fall. Mr. Cox helped us apply for one of those to get some monies for the dog park. There's no real application date or anything, but, Baird Stewart Foundation, the city has looked at, they've helped us out when we needed stuff for the aquatic center or the town square. So that's kind of an annual, if we need something, we might ask. If it's like 5,000 or less, we possibly ask them and they can see if they can help us out. So those I think are always default, like, these are things that are within our community. There's a Nelsonville Community Fund that Joe probably remembers, that got started from when they sold the high school.
The Foundation for Appalachian Ohio.
Yeah.
They're very much alive
Yeah.
and have helped a lot. So if you have needs, ask. There's always that opportunity there, and there are applications available. I just simply.
Their grants are usually, the applications are due like early in the year, like February to April, I think, aren't they?
I have not, I'm going to say it was more towards fall, where I was thinking that the awardments were made, but we're preparing now to receive more information on other projects that
That
are.
might be the educational ones that they manage
That's what you're thinking, of course. But it is called the Nelsonville Foundation, and it is for the whole surrounding area, including Carbon Hill, Little Murray City, that all are a part of that. But don't forget about us, we want to help with 282.
And then, then I think that there's, other grants out there, which we've talked a couple times, we still haven't been able to pull it off, but, used to be the Tony Hawk grant, now it's called, just changed the name of it. That your son he's very active. He would still like to help us with that, I think, if we could actually, pull that off, but, we can apply to have a skate park. I know we have interest of some youth in this area. Mr. Cox also thinks we could do a pump track, and we were talking about actually combining the two, which would be unique because we don't have anything like that in this region. There is a deadline, I think, for that one. I don't recall the date.
Okay.
And then I think if we can ever find any infrastructure, grants, I think it's always good to apply for that stuff, because when you're dealing in a historic town with 100-year plus, old infrastructure, we need a lot of work on that still. We're making a lot of headway, so, but we still got some ways to get up, so. But yeah, there's some ideas.
Thank you. I've got my homework now. In the interest of time, I'd like to go over the last item, which was brought to us by the city attorney, which was consideration of the 2024 ORCA membership fees. I'm not sure really.
So ORCA, I don't remember the acronym, what it stands for, but basically we've had not blank on her name. Miss Powers. She's been here and talked about ORCA. Also was one of the founding members of that. I think we paid the first year, if I'm not mistaken, but I think what Mr. Rove and maybe Mr. Tolliver were discussing with them is that in lieu of water and sewer, is that
There was,
Instead of paying the $500 a year,
5,000.
5,000. Oh, it's 5,000?
Yeah, so it's the Outdoor Recreation Council of Athens maybe? And, their membership fees around 5,000. The city entered negotiations and I thought completed negotiations where the city would provide water and sewer. They wouldn't have to pay a bill, but the city wouldn't pay the membership fee, so that's just win-win for everybody all around. The city was then asked to pay the membership fee for, this would have been for 2024. After the negotiations
You remember
completed.
this.
I don't think we ever got an invoice. That's why it wasn't paid, right?
Right, it was more informal, and then Mr. Rowe was left a little, well, actually, I'm gonna be honest, I was left a little confused too. Because we were under this understanding that we were all done, we figured this out, and then the question, obviously, we could have been wrong. I don't wanna just point fingers, we could have misunderstood. But the legislation council passed specifically barred, with you, the language, it says the auditor may not, or shall not issue any membership payments from now on. So I informed Orca, I actually can't pay that year unless council changes their mind on that. And I think Mr. Rowe was asking you folks to
Talk about it.
consider whether you'd like to go ahead and make that first membership or last membership payment and then no longer have one.
Yeah, I'm okay with doing the legislation for, in lieu of the services going forward.
So I have a question. Can you use water and sewer?
We use them for all of our lawsuits currently, so why would?
That's why I'm bringing it up. We could use those as, I don't want to use that one, a bargaining tool. Negotiate, I don't know, obviously Mr. Rowe must have looked into it or he wouldn't have brought it up.
If it's simply services in lieu of the fee, you know, I mean, it's basically an in-kind, because if you think about some of the other grants, so talking about other grants, a lot of times the city has to, we have a lot of grants that we apply for and we are awarded where you have to put in a match, if you will. And some of the match is allowed to be in kind and not necessarily monetary. So if our employees or our equipment is used to facilitate projects, so those things are considered in kind contributions to it. So I'm thinking this is kind of along that same line. So if I'm guessing, since he emailed us that information, that he may have already looked into it, we can ask him for clarification on it. I'm okay with.
I don't want to open up Pandora's.
Yeah, I'm okay with discussing it further in another meeting to, you know, before we bring it to full council if need be. I'm not sure about the last, you know, I'd probably have to ask more questions about paying last year's invoice just to, you know, be more informed of why were we not invoiced? Why did we not pay, you know?
Yeah, we just kind of went down that road,
Yeah. But, you know, in terms of just going forward, being able to, you know, be part of Orca and in lieu of services, I mean, I'm okay with that. I'm not.
Right. I am kind of on the same page. I would like a better understanding of whether or not this in-kind contribution in exchange for the waiver of membership fees arrangement was in place before the 2024 membership year. So, and if it was, is it lawful for us to then pay the membership fee having provided the water and sewer services?
So why don't we just put that back to Mr. Rhodes then, maybe for some more information regarding it and possible discussion in the next committee meeting?
Okay. I am fine with that. Is that where you're at? Is that-
Yes, I agree.
All right, well, is there any, are there any other?
They look like
items?
they're asleep right now.
Right,
I came
is
back
there
to watch
anything
the
else
finale.
that, the finance committee should consider at this time, from the public? Hearing nothing,
I'm concerned about this what do you call it, the
In kind?
in kind.
in kind, yeah,
If it wasn't in writing, it doesn't count.
was it, do you know if it was in writing?
I don't, I mean, I know council's legislation placed some items in writing. We'd have to go back to that resolution, but I don't think there's a signed agreement.
Then it's
Yeah,
null and void.
And if I'm wrong with that, I'm sorry, I just don't think so, but.
Yeah, I think we have some more fact finding to do on that.
okay.
Yep.
Well, then, the time is 9:05 PM. And we are adjourning the finance committee meeting, if there is no objection.
No objection. No objection. All right.
Thank you.
Good meeting. Good job.
Yes, very good.